Well, here we are. It is Friday, the 12th of June, and today we're going to go through, as we all do every week, and take a look at what's happening in the auction market, what's sold this week, what's coming up, and all that sort of thing. But before we get started, there's something I want to talk about a little bit. Last week, we were talking about a sale that's happening at New England auction galleries down in Connecticut, and we highlighted several lots in the sale that looked pretty good to us, and one of them was this plate. And after doing the video, I began looking at it very, very carefully, and just because I was sort of interested in it, if I felt that it was authentic, and I looked at it further and further. And by late Friday night, I was beginning to wonder about the authenticity of it. And then on Saturday, I got up and I was planning on doing a little bit more searching, and I did some. And lo and behold, I found a number of these plates in this particular pattern have turned up in the market in the last 2 to 3 years. This seems to be the window when they're coming in. We found some over in Europe that have sold for fairly good amounts of money. One that was damaged that sold for a lot of money. And then I got an email. I got emails from two people. One of them is one of our viewers in Japan who was good enough to send me some photos that he found because he was researching the plate as well. He's a very knowledgeable collector, and he found this. And this is the same plate in all four photographs apparently, or it's yeah, I think it was in an auction, and he was taking pictures as it progressed through the sale. But this is exactly the same type of plate, and this was a reproduction. And what we're finding is that they are now making unbelievably good copies out there. With this plate, we looked at the front and the back of it. Very, very good quality all the way around. The only thing missing from this plate is the brown dressing on the rim that most of them have. Not all of them, but most of them have. So I got a hold of Fred Giampietro immediately on Saturday and let him know, and he immediately said, "We'll take the thing down." And and he did. Apparently, the Lally sticker was applied to it later, that we suspect, which we've seen before with Spinks and other things. Now we're seeing it with Jim Lally stickers are now appearing on pieces. So if you come across something with a Lally sticker on it, you might want to go and check Mr. Lally's past catalogs for his auctions. They're still on the internet, and you can flip through a lot of them and see if it's in there. But in any event, the piece was not right, and a number of people thought it was, evidently. I thought it was initially, and then as I started to think about it and look for other examples for comps to get a better idea of value, other than the one that sold at Christie's for a lot of money, there weren't many of them around, but there were a lot of copies of them. And to Fred Giampitro's credit, he didn't question it for a minute. He said, "Then that's out of here. I don't want the headache." He's a very straight up guy, so bravo. And I actually talked to Fred earlier today about it, and he was very glad to hear it. He's not a Chinese specialist, but he runs straight up auctions, and he doesn't want any hassles with people. He doesn't like to misrepresent things ever. So anyway, that's what happened. So if you're wondering what happened to that plate, that's what happened to it. All right, he took it down, and that was the end of it. All right, now, what else is going on? Oh, this is going on. This is an interesting vase. This is coming up for sale on the 17th of June at Hill Auctions down in Sunrise, Florida. And I had bookmarked this several weeks ago when it first appeared. And when it was initially listed, some of you might have seen it. It had a metal mount on the top here, like a candlestick holder, like to put a candlestick in or a socket for something. It hadn't been drilled, so it was a little bit of a mystery why. But it had what they call them a bow bash in the top of it that was covering the rim up here. And I speculated on the video that it may have been just put on there, not necessarily to cover up any damage, just to put it on. Well, the auction house somehow found this out, and they removed it. And this is the top of it. This is a really good vase. This is a beautiful Flambe glaze vase. It's very large. It measures 17 inches in height. There it is next to a wine bottle. It's a big vase, and it was only estimated. Well, it was estimated at $1,000 to $10,000. I guess was the estimate they put on it. But I want you to see the bottom of it. It appears to be a Qianlong mark and period example. There's the bottom of it. The mark is upside down in the photograph, but it's okay. But the foot rim, the paste, on these flambe pieces, they often have this sort of almost it's a porcelain, but it almost looks like a little bit. It's slightly toned in color, almost looks like stoneware. You do see that sometimes, but this yellow modeling underneath and all this sort of mess is very typical of the 18th century examples. And I think this is an awfully nice vase. It's got 74 people watching it, so it hasn't gone unnoticed. And we're going to keep track of it and see how it does. But if you're looking for a really beautiful piece of flambe, the glaze on this is excellent. The color is very nice. It goes from light to dark. There's lots of speckles in it and so forth. And then it starts to turn sort of a reddish tone up at the top, and then it goes clear at the mouth. Very, very attractive porcelain. I suspect it'll bring 10 or 15,000, maybe more, because of its size. It may bring over 20, but we'll see. We'll see. We're going to watch it. We'll come back next week and tell you how it did. All right, now over to this. This is Material Culture over in Pennsylvania. You probably know them because we've covered their rug sales and textile sales. They had that really interesting auction a few months ago of all the Chairman Mao stuff, the Cultural Revolution material, which was sort of fun for them. I talked to them down there about it, and they were sort of excited about that auction. They liked the idea of it. And it did pretty well. And that's the kind of stuff that down the road is going to become very collectible as time goes on, for things from the Cultural Revolution. But they've gotten some other Chinese things in, and they got this. This is a really fine pair of gu vases, Kangxi period, and they're fairly good size. They're 18 inches tall each. These are big ones. Very, very attractive. They are a pair. They're appropriately decorated. The snow white porcelain at the top. These look awfully good to me. And here's a picture of the bottoms of them. The foot rims are completely consistent with the Kangxi period. The bottoms of them all look very good. The exposed paste looks good. And the color of the vase looks very good. The underglazed blue tones and so forth. So we're going to see how that does. The starting price is $18,000, and it sounds high, but these are 18, 19-inch tall vases, and it's a pair of them. And I have to think that, well, one of them is probably worth, if you had a single of these, they'd probably be worth 6 to 9,000 anyway. And we'll see how they do. But they're getting a lot of interest, so I'll be very curious to see how they do. Very, very curious. The estimate is 30 to 50,000, which might be a little bit aggressive, but I don't think 18 would be an unreasonable price for someone to pay for these, or somewhere in that range. All right, now up to these. These are also in the sale. Very nice pair of quill and millet covered boxes. They've dated them as 19th century, but all the ones I've ever seen that look exactly like this, and you can put these in Google Lens and find them. They're nearly always dated as Qinlong period. Occasionally they date them as Jiaxing, early 19th century, but these are extremely fine. These are beautifully done ivory boxes. And I guess the ivory bands are coming to a conclusion, apparently, because I'm starting to see ivory turning up all over the place in Europe, too. I noticed the other day, Carlo Santi's sale, I mentioned it in the video yesterday, there's got a piece of ivory in it. They already have a CITES permit for it. So hopefully the environmental people are letting up the gas a little bit on restricting the sale of antique ivory. It's a ridiculous restriction. It makes no sense at all. It's had no impact on all. It has no impact at all on the illicit ivory trade. And I'm hoping very soon that it's they lift the embargo completely. You know, any ivory carved before 1920 or 1930 certainly should be allowed to be sold on the market. It's not going to bring the elephant back, and it's beautiful art. It's a traditional art form, and you know, what's acceptable today versus what was acceptable back then. You have to go with what was acceptable back then when it comes to art. You start restricting art in any form, you're in trouble in this world. And these are beautiful boxes. These are absolutely beautiful. Wonderful quality, and the estimate is extremely reasonable, $1,000 to $2,000. In the past, I've never seen a pair of these sell for under about $4,000 or $5,000. So we'll see how they do. And then over to this, there's a very nice, now this is marked China, and they dated as 19th century. It could conceivably be because they started marking things at about 1895, so it could be at the end of the 19th century. I think more likely it's a late Qing to possibly early Republic period planter, but it's a nice one, and I know a lot of you like planters. Well, this is a good one, and it is estimated at $400 to $600, $400 to $800, which is fine, and it measures 5 by 7 inches by 4, so it's 7 inches long. It's a nice sized box. The Famille Rose decoration on it is very, very nice. It's extremely nice. and it looks to be an overall very, very good condition. I don't see any damage to it, and the China mark was stamped on the foot rim in here. And that's the typical type of mark that you see stamped on things from the late Qing to the very, very beginning of the Republic era. All right. The starting price is $150. See how that goes. It's a nice looking piece of porcelain. And then there's the cups, 12 Seasons cups and Fallon Kai glazes. These are interesting, and it made me think immediately of the chicken cups, the box lot of 4 chicken cups that were sold out in the Midwest a couple of weeks ago that brought $24,000 or $5,000. And again, now you have these. These do not appear to be modern copies. This looks like a nice old display case. The decorations on them look excellent. You'll see a little bit of tearing down at the bottom, but these kinds of boxes, and also the patina and the wood, it's got some age to it, as well as the porcelains look very good as well. And if you flip them along, they've got the inscriptions on the back. The quality of the decoration is, of course, very, very good. It's even got the little silk holders for each cup on the bottom. They're very, very nice. There's a whole bunch of them. They have chin lung marks on the bottom. There's a group of them. Now, these have a lot of watchers right now, and I think they're going to do very well. They don't have any bids yet, but there's 43 people watching it. The sale is on the 23rd of June, so there's about 10 days to go before the sale begins. But I watch this lot. I think they're going to do awfully well. And how big are the cups? The cups are probably 3 inches or so wide. Let's see here. The sizes. Let's see, 2 by 3.5 inches wide each, 2 inches tall, 3.5 inches wide. The box is 17 by 12 inches. So you give you some idea of scale to it, but it's a nice thing and it has its box. And lately we've noticed that things from this period that have their original presentation boxes get a lot of attention. I think it's because it's the complete package, as they say. So we'll see how it does. I think they'll probably bring 15 or 20,000, but we'll see. We'll see. You never know. You never know, but they're beautiful. They're beautiful quality, and they certainly appear to be from the Republic era, from what I'm seeing. There's a picture of the bottoms of them, but the foot rim, the paste, the way they're trimmed, the glaze, it all looks pretty good. It all looks pretty good. And then hopping along over to this is also in the sale. This is just a nice big late Yongchen, early Qianlong period, a 12-inch dish. It's got nice famille rose enamels in the middle. It's in very, very good condition all the way around from what I can see. It's got little bits of white enamels up in here. The rose enamels aren't chipped anywhere. The plate looks like it's in good shape. There's no damage to it of any kind. There we go. There's the back of it. Looks fine all the way around. I don't see any repairs to it. You can email them. I always suggest people email and get a condition report on these things. And this is coming up, as I said, at Material Culture. I'm going to get the dimensions correct on it, make sure we're right. And 12 inches exactly, 12 inches across. And register on Material Culture's website if you're going to bid for this stuff. And I always say that. I just don't want to sound like a broken record, but you save on the live auctioneers, it's a 30% commission. I suspect on Material Cultures, it's probably 25. So you save 5%. So if you're spending a couple of grand, it makes a difference. And then the last thing on the sale is this is very nice, very classic. It's a very instantly recognizable type of punch bowl. It measures about 11.5 inches in diameter, China trade circa 1780. And the deal with these bowls is you want to find them where they're in unworn condition because they had a lot of gilding on them and they were used. People used these bowls. They didn't just display them. That's why so often you find them and they've got all kinds of hairline cracks and wear to the middle of them and so forth, because these bowls were used in everyday life as center bowls on dinner tables and so forth. But this is a nice looking one. The estimate is 2,000 to 3,000. That's a little steep for these days. They typically bring around 12 to 1,600, somewhere in there. But the opening bid is 800. That's perfectly reasonable. So we'll see where that lands on the other end of it. And the last thing is this nice big piece of coral. Coral has such a strong following everywhere, and it doesn't matter whether it's 19th century. Most of the coral pieces you see around her were carved during the Republic period, and you see them in auctions here. You see them in auctions overseas, and they have such a strong following. The coral collectors are sort of like the ivory collectors and the rhino horn collectors. Organic material has been beautifully carved, and this is a very nice one. You'll notice it has a coral chain on it, which is quite a feat. This is very, very elegant, beautifully done, and the color is nice. Coral generally comes in a couple of colors. Some people push the price of the soft pink ones a bit more than the harder orange ones, and then other people go after these. So if you look up prices for coral that's sold, you're going to find sort of odd swings based on color. From time to time. But at any rate, these are very, very nice, and they measure about 9 inches tall, pretty good size, and they should do better, as well as they should easily get into the estimate, easily. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if it brought two or 3,000 or so. These are very, very nice. It's got 21 watches on it right now, and just see where it goes. Just see where it goes. But if you're a coral collector, you want to pay attention. And there are 3 or 4 other pieces of coral in this sale as well. It's not just this. There's quite a bit of Chinese material in there. Some of it is okay. Some of it I'm not too sure about, and neither was material culture because they didn't date some of it. So the pieces we're talking about are okay, but the other pieces you want to sort of with any sale, examine them very carefully. All right, so that's it for that sale. But check it out, Material Culture, June 23rd. Good looking sale. There's a lot of sales coming up the week of the 23rd. By the way, you've got the Eldred sale. We've talked about that. You've got the Marco Polo sale coming up in about a month. No, that's next month, I believe. No, that's on the 23rd as well. Excuse me. And then you've got. Oh, there's several others. I can't think of them all off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of auctions happening between the 21st and the 28th of June. So check your scorecards. All right, and then you have this. Now this sale is also coming up on the 21st of June, and this is Locati auctions. Out west. And it's funny because I had bookmarked a number of this. They have a bunch of great Satsuma. If you're a Satsuma buyer, you want to look at the sale. There's 53 pieces of Satsuma in the sale and some other Japanese things that look pretty good and a few Chinese things that are pretty good. And this is Locati, and they're in Pennsylvania, as I recall. The sale starts in 8 days. And we're going to go through just some of the Satsuma lots to give you an idea. I actually talked to them yesterday about the sale, and they're pretty excited about it. But it's a good-looking auction, as you can see. There's some very fine pieces in here, extremely fine. Some of them have very low estimates, and it's not because that's what they think they're worth. It's just that there's not a big reserve on every lot in the sale. There's a couple of key pieces that have slightly higher estimates, but they're by famous potters. All right, so let's get going over here. Here you have this one, a nice big Satsuma plate. It measures 7.5 inches. Not too big, but it's beautifully done. Nice piece, and this came from a Philadelphia collection. Wonderful quality, and many of them are marked on the back. So if you're a Satsuma collector, you get the Satsuma mark books, and you can look up all of the different signatures that Satsuma used. If you've never seen the Satsuma mark books, the ones that are very in-depth, there are so many marks. It's unbelievable. And here you have it, this one. And I love it when they do these plates with these square panels, and then they put these overlays, almost like photographs, have been laid into the plate and then painted. I think it's a very good effect, and you see this on the finer Satsuma pieces fairly often. Very good detail. Very good detail of the women here. Nicely glazed, good color, good condition. It's a nice looking piece of porcelain. It's estimated at just $200 to $400. Don't expect to buy it for that. I figure it'll probably go for $400 or $500 or $600 maybe. The $100 opening bid. It's only got 7 people watching it so far. So, but there's a week yet to go, and it'll pick up steam as things go along. But if you're a Satsuma buyer, these kind of sales you want to pay attention to, because these are the kind of collections that people have built up over time and selected the better pieces for their own collection, obviously, and now they're all being let go at once, and that's a wonderful way to buy. And then you have this. This is quite a thing. It's by Yabu Maizan. It measures 9 inches tall with these procession scenes on it. Here it is, beautifully done with a cover, and I love the finial on the ribbed knob on the top. This is a beautiful piece of porcelain or pottery, and let's flip it around. There we go. Good detail, classical Maizan work. Let's see here. There will be a signature on the bottom. There always is. Hold on. Lots of photos. There it is, the mark. It's the last one. It's always the last one. There it is. There it is. It's on its side, but it's there. And good looking piece of Satsuma ware. $1,500 opening bid. It already has a bid. It's going to do very well. It'll probably bring. It'll. They estimated at 3 to 5 thousand. I suspect it's going to get there. It's a nice piece of Satsuma. And then there's this. This is one of my favorite things in the sale. It doesn't have a big estimate, but it's a really nice little Koro. And I love the way it's designed. I love the layers, the stripes, and I love this green tone in here. It's actually almost the color of my living room, and that's why I picked it. I like the color. So my wife calls it a French. My wife called it a French green, and then you have all these little devices, birds and scrolling vines and whatnot around it. And then at the top, you have this very tiny miniaturized procession of people walking all the way around the top, and then up to the handles and so forth. This is a lovely piece, and there are the piercings on the top to let the smoke out of the piece. There you have the finial. Very nicely done. I think this is just a charming little box, a little incense burner. It measures 3 inches and let's see, it's 3 and 3/4 inches in diameter. It's about that big, and 2 1/4 inches high. It's a lovely little. It's a gem of a piece. I think I just like that one. That's just my taste. And then you have this another Koro. There's a lot of Koros in this sale, by the way. The guy seemed to be very interested in incense burners, so he's got a number of them. You have this one. It's a Kikkozan example with nice handles on it, floral decoration, very finely enameled, black and gilt enamel around the top, and then these little interesting heart-shaped devices around the top was for the holes. I think that was sort of an interesting selection. And go along over here. There it is. There are the butterflies in the top, and so forth. So check that out. The estimate is $400 to $600, worth every penny. Very, very nice. It's got a Kikkozan mark on it. And then over to this, another by Yabu Maizan. This is an interesting. It's like a squared off Mei Ping vase. And it is. Let's see, how tall is this? It's pretty small, 2.5 inches tall, according to this. Is that possible? Is that possible? 2.5 inches? I would email them and find out if it's really that small. I would think I could see 4 or 5 inches. 2.5 inches seems awfully small for that. Maybe it is. If it is, it's really rare to find one this small and that refined. It's a beautiful looking thing. There's the top of it. Yeah, maybe it is 2.5 inches tall. Look at the size of the sticker on it. But notice the top, how well it's decorated with these radiating panels of flowers. And over here you have some people, some geisha in front of a mirror. And it looks like they're getting ready to have maybe a little tea and so forth. And you've got some other women over here doing something else. Another scene up top. And then these beautiful millefiori patterned flowers going around it. This is a nice looking thing. And then you have the flying geese, the flying birds. So these geese are ducks, or what are they? No, they're just flying birds. I don't know what they almost look like sparrows. $750 opening bid, $1,500 to $2,500 by Yabu Maizan, though. You have to always keep that in mind who the maker is. All right. And then another piece. This is a very fine Satsuma Millefiori Koro with figures and drawing water and so forth. It looks like they're preparing for a tea ceremony, or bringing in the water anyway. And this one is not signed. It's unsigned. It's 4.5 inches in diameter, but it's a sweet piece. It's only estimated at $500 to $700 with a $250 opening bid, but very, very fine workmanship. And sometimes people who collect these things can identify who the likely maker was just by looking at the style of work, because they've handled so much of it. And that's a pretty good looking one. And then you have this also. This is signed by Akiyama, another Koro with a silver top on it. Beautifully done. And this is a continuous figural scene going around the outside of the piece, is what I remember. And there's the screen on the top. Very elegant, very Japanese. Beautiful work, and nice details. Good. They did a very good job of the photography on these pieces. And notice the details of the faces, how finely they're done. Really, really well done all the way down. And the fingers and the hands, the nails, all the little bits are meticulously done. Nice gilding on it. Estimated at just $600 to $800 with a $300 opening bid, and it measures 5.5 inches in height. It's fairly small, but boy, it's a nice one. Anyway, and then other things in the sale. We're almost done with the sale. There's this very nice Japanese mid to late Edo period charger. It measures 13 1/4 inches in diameter. It's beautifully done, though. And this is also, yeah, I'm gonna double check. It's also at Lacati. But this has very nice colors to it, and the blue on it's particularly nice. Then you have this nice big negative space area with a underglazed blue balustrade, which is quite unusual. Most of the time when you see balustrades drawn on these, they tend to be in enamels. This one, they did it in blue, which is sort of pretty. It's very unusual, but very finely done repeat patterns around the shoulder and so forth. It's a nice looking plate. It's a very good example. And the back of it has, the back of it has these nice radiating panels of women going on it. There's the foot rim. There's the back of it. There it is. Spur marks spun around it. And notice the women. And you may recall when you look at the backs of Amari plates, the better plates have fairly good decorations. On the less expensive ones, they would just do a quick flower or two and just sort of get it off the wheel and get it gone. In this case, they painted, again, the blue balustrade going all the way around the outside, and then these figurals, these female figures coming off the plate. I think it's very, very pretty. It's a nice thing. It's much better than an average piece of Amari, and probably made in the early 19th century, somewhere in there. It was. I don't think it was made during the Meiji period. I think it was made before that. And then this China trade lacquer tea caddy, 19th century. It's a nice one. I know some of you buy tea caddies out here. It's got some good-looking, legitimate wear on the around the lid where it's lifted up all the time. And there it is. It still has its pewter insert, ivory finial, and it's got the leaves on there. They often show it's a very typically seen pattern on the underside of lids to tea caddies. Estimated at $300 to $400, which is very, very reasonable. The starting price is $150. All right, and then I think this is the last thing in the sale I'm going to talk about. Yeah, it is. This very nice Chinese export pith paintings. If you've wanted to own these are mid 19th century pith paintings, and they're not by any famous workshop, but they're very well done, and the paper is in remarkable condition from what I can see. There's no breaks in it. Pith paper, as you know, is very prone to cracking and breaking, discoloration. It's very much affected by environment, humidity, and all this sort of thing. But when you look at these things, these paintings, for example, this one, very nicely painted, and it still has its silk frame going around it. Usually they come out of albums and they have these silk frames going around them, often in blue silk or a little brocade like this. Nicely done, beautifully framed too. That's the other thing. Don't forget, these are all framed and ready to go, because you're looking at a $250 to $300 frame for each one. That's how much framing. I mentioned framing incessantly, I realize, but it's just because I know I've heard from so many people that have bought a beautiful Chinese painting for $600 or $700, and they called and they said, they tell me they got it and they're happy about getting it. They said, the frame on it was $900 or $800 because it's a fairly big thing. Framing is expensive, so if you can pick up beautiful pictures that are already framed and ready to hang, and these frames look fairly recent, I would go for it. The estimate is very reasonable, $300 to $500 for all four, $150 opening bid. They should bring several hundred. They should bring, even at auction, they should bring $200 or $300 a piece. But if they go for the estimate, they're an absolute steal, and they wouldn't be terribly expensive to ship because these are not enormous paintings. The overall size is just 11 by 15 inches, including the frame, and you can make a wall out of them in your house. All right, and then on to some results. You may remember now this is sort of an ode to the advantages of doing early listing. So if you're an auctioneer out there and you're always wondering how soon should I get the sale up, this was at Showplace Auctions in New York. They tend to list their things, it seems to be anywhere from 5 to 8 weeks in advance of the sale. All right, because I had mentioned this vase when it first came up a couple of months, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Some of you will remember it's a big Kangxi jar. It measured 18 and a half inches tall. They gave it a very low estimate of just $1,500 to $2,500. And by the time the sale took place this week, it took place yesterday, as a matter of fact, it had 119 watchers. And that is the advantage of putting stuff up early. All right. If you see an auction that's only been up for a week, they're not going to have many watchers because nobody's had time to find the sale yet. There's so many things for sale on Live Auctioneers. Showplace is well aware of that. And they have a formula where they put up everything weeks in advance, weeks and weeks in advance. And by the time you get to a Showplace auction closing, always check the number of people watching it. And it's usually a fairly high number because so many people have seen it. Plus, they're in New York. So anybody living in the city knows they don't have to get it shipped. They can just swing by and pick the thing up. But this was a wonderful jar. At the time, I think we sort of speculated that it should bring at least 5 to 8,000. It brought 8,000 plus the buyer's premium, so it ended up going for about $10,000. But it's a well-known pattern of a kangxi ware, nicely done. Looked to be in overall pretty good condition from what I could see. I don't see anything wrong with it. If any of you got a condition report on this, let me know what they told you, because it looks quite clean as far as condition goes. There's the bottom of it, very typical for these big kangxi jars. They typically often left them unglazed, especially if they're wide bases. They didn't bother, and the base will be slightly concave, of course. And this did very, very well. So this is just something for if you're running an auction house up there, get your stuff up early. This putting stuff up 2 weeks before the sale is a disservice to your own wallet as well as to the consignor's wallet. It just doesn't work out. Do it 4 or 5. Give yourself an extra couple of weeks. All right, and then over to this. This sold. This was that wonderful Indian textile I had talked about a number of times that sold at Material Culture. We're back to Material Culture. This is what they're really known for, is textiles. But they seem to be getting into a lot of other things too. So that's great. This is a really rare thing. And it was only estimated $800 to $1,200. And I think somebody got a bargain on this. I think somebody got an absolute bargain. And maybe people were looking at it and not realizing how big it was, because it was 8'6" by 7'4". This was the size of a Persian rug. And it went for $2,300 plus the premium, or around, that brings it up to around $3,000, call it. All right. And I think that was an absolute steal. If this had sold for $6,000 or $8,000, I wouldn't have been at all surprised. I think this was a great buy for somebody. Absolutely great buy. I think this was an absolutely wonderful thing and a rare thing. You do not see these very often. Bookmark it in your mind and let me know the next time you see one of these turn up in the market. Unless Material Culture's got a client that's got more of these and they're just doing a trial run. You don't see them. You just don't. Like I said, the PB Museum's got a good one on display. It's on permanent display there in the China trade, in the China-India trade area of the museum. So I think that was probably one of the buys of the week. And then hopping along over to the Asia Online sale. This was the Bonham series that was run in Paris this week. They had an online sale that took place, and then they had a regular in-house active bidder situation. So they had 2 sales. One was online only, one was live. And we'll go through a few of the lots here and see how they did. This is something we talked about last week, or 2 weeks ago. It was this Yuan Dynasty ribbed bowl, lotus form bowl. I like this bowl a lot. I thought it was very attractive. I thought the estimate was extremely reasonable and would probably do better than that. And the estimate was just 1,000 to 2,000 euros. In the end, it sold for 3,200 euros plus the premium, so around $4,000. So it sold for about double the high estimate, but I'm not at all surprised. This had beautiful color, was very well potted, had a very charming look to it. I love the shade of the green on it, and the foot rim looks absolutely fine. That's what it should look like. It's got a lot of iron content showing up there when they fired it. Did very, very well. And then there was this. Oh, speaking of coral, here you go. This one is 8 5/8 inches tall. It's not exactly like the other one, but they're kissing cousins. And this one sold for $3,000 plus the premium, or around $3,900, $3,800, $3,800 US. And there it is. Fairly similar in color. The workmanship is very good on it. It doesn't. I don't see any chains on it, but it's got a lot of intricacy in through the middle section here. It did very well. All right, so $3,900. And think back, the one that's coming up that we just talked about, give you some idea on value. And I don't think they overpaid for it at all. We've seen them sell for even more. All right, and then over to this. This was an interesting thing. This is a Mei Ping vase that was in the sale. It was estimated at just $800 to $1,200. All right, and it wasn't a terribly big vase. It was about 6 inches, 6.5 inches tall, and it was estimated at $800 to $1,200 euros. It ended up going for 4,200 euros plus the buyer's premium, so it ended up selling for about $5,300. Clearly, a later Qing piece, nicely done, underglazed blue with underglazed red. Of course, that makes it rather interesting. Nicely potted, and so forth, but not big, not flashy, and it did very well. In the end, in U.S. currency, it ended up going for about $6,300 against a roughly a $950 to $1,300 U.S. estimate. And this is something we're noticing a lot of. These later Qing pieces that are very fine are getting a lot of attention. They don't have to, and I'm including the Republic period, because for so long they always said that there was nothing good. Nothing good was made after 1850. That was sort of the way people talked back around 1950 and before. They didn't view anything made during the Guangxu period as even worth looking at. Basically, drill it and make a table lamp out of it. That was the viewpoint by many. In Republic pieces, we had no interest at all, except for a few very savvy inside collectors that were real serious collectors at that time. One of the most notable was the Burnett family here in Boston, who bought them. And they have pieces on permanent display from the Republic period in the Boston Museum of Fine Art, because the pieces are exceptional. We actually looked at one of them in the video we did on the MFA some months ago, you may recall. All right, but this was a wonderful thing, and there was a lot of interest in it, and it took off. And we're going to see if that trend continues, because I think there is some respect due to the ceramicists of this period, much more than what they've gotten. And I think there's some way to go with it. And then over to this, you may remember we talked about this because I just love the shape of it. I just love the shape of it. And I thought the estimate was awfully reasonable. Very unusual Kangxi Femi-Vare vase. I love the sort of garlic knob on the top with the leaf going across it, and then the birds on the rocks and the turquoise colors, or that soft bluish green, and so forth. I thought it was very, very nice piece. Not terribly big. It was 6 and 7/8 inches tall, and it was estimated at just 12 to 1,500 euros. And in the end, it sold for 2,800 euros plus the premium, so around about 3,500 euros roughly, or that would be around $4,200, $4,300 in U.S. currency. And this was a nice thing. It took off. It got attention. And I think largely because, one, the quality was very, very good. The enamel colors were excellent. They're bright, crisp, and clean. And the shape of the piece is very unusual. Very, very unusual. So you combine those two, and so enough people stood up and said, yeah, that's a great thing. I'll take it. And so bravo on that. And then you get over, and there was a lot of other things sold. If you want to see it, a lot of the stuff was sort of mid-range things for 1,000 to 1,500. That weren't all they're not. There's nothing wrong with them. They're all very nice, but there weren't any real superstars. And then the live sale did pretty well, but I went through and did the math on it. It looks like about a third of the sale didn't sell. Roughly about 70% or so did sell, from the way I looked at it, from the lots that were passed. And that shows that there's some resistance in the market right now to heavy estimates. Heavy estimates, and we've talked about this before. Many of you I've talked to on the phone have called about one thing or another, and we talked about estimates, and nearly all of you have said, even if I know it's going to bring way over what I'm willing to pay for it, if they throw out a little bit of hope that I could buy it, I'll bid on the thing, and I'll participate in the sale. And sometimes they fall in love with it and they just spend the money it takes to get it. But off-putting. The most off-putting thing an auction house can do today in the Asian art space anywhere, and I think also when I've been hearing about the modern painting sales at New York and all that sort of postmodern stuff, big estimates are scaring away customers. Big estimates are intimidating people. And a lot of people have overpaid for things over the years. That's just the way it is in the art world. As I've said many, many, many times, art is a terrible investment in general. It's good for the dividends are the joy of ownership and that sort of thing. But if you look at what some modern paintings were selling for 20 or 30 years ago, and you take that amount of money and you have thrown it in the S&P 500 for the last 20 years, you would be a lot better off in the S&P 500 by a mile. That's all there is to it, by 200%. But at any rate, in general, that's just a general thing. But we're seeing it also in the Chinese works of art. We're seeing pieces that have heavy estimates getting no interest. Things that have reasonable estimates for what they are do just fine. And here you have a case like this. This bronze, this Shakyamuni bronze, was estimated at just 6,000 to 8,000 euros. It was much, much better than that, and it did great. It doubled the estimate. Here you have one that's estimated at 25 to 35,000 euros, and it's sold for the minimum. It's sold at basically at the opening price. All right, and that's getting off. That's skinning it awful close. And the truth is, if you get a couple of people interested in a lower estimate, they'll start to chase each other up the ladder. But if the estimate is too high, somebody will go, "Oh, forget it. I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother it." All right. And then let's see what else happened over here. You had this. Now, we talked about this the other day, and I had wondered if the basin to this was original to the piece. Well, evidently it must have been. All right, but this was the thing you always want to check out on these, because the color on the bottom site looked different than this, the color of the cup. On here it looks whiter, but on the bottom site there was a slight difference in color. That might have been the photography, I don't know. But at any rate, in the end, it did fine. I thought this was a very rare thing, either way, beautifully done. And it was estimated at 30 to 50,000 euros. It ended up going for roughly 90,000 euros with the buyer's premium. So that was a very good thing. But you always want to check. You always want to check to be absolutely sure. All right, but apparently the bowl to this must for that price it had to have been the original bowl. All right, and then over to this. This was a wonderful thing. This had the 12 imperial emblems on it. It was a piece of lacquer. Had a very low estimate, 25 to 35,000 euros. There's no way this was going to go for 25 to 35,000 euros. And the 12 emblems of the imperial house, the sun, the moon, the water, all that sort of thing, the celestial symbols and so forth are on this. These are extremely rare, and these were made for the Qinlong Emperor. And there's the seal is in the middle here, and the estimate was very low. The seller obviously was a serious seller, and in the end, it ended up going for about 120,000 euros, including the buyer's premium, from an estimate of 25 to 35,000. And there you have. That's another one of these cases where a lot of people fell in love with it, and it took off. It just took off, but a spectacular quality work. And if you want more photographs, you can go over to the Bottom's website. On the Live Auctioneers, for some reason, they only put one photo very often. And here you have the Qinlong mark in the middle, and then all this archaistic business running around it. And these were not terribly big. Typically, let's see how big this one was. It was just a hair over a foot tall. It looks enormous. It looks like a door. It was about 13 inches tall, so it's not that big, but beautiful quality. Beautiful, beautiful quality. And then hopping along, this was the gilt bronze we had mentioned. I just happen to love the gilt splash bronzes, and this was a very, very nice one. And it wasn't terribly big, but it had good size to it. It was around 6 or so inches, 5 or 6 inches tall. 8 inches tall. There it is. And it was nicely done. The estimate was very reasonable. I thought it was, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago or last week, because it had 2,000 to 3,000 euro estimate, which is very low for one of these. And in the end, it did quite well. It brought 4,200 euros plus the buyer's premium, around $5,300 or so, or 5,300 euros. In U.S. currency, it brought just about $6,000 for this bronze. But it was a wonderful example, good gilt splashes, and had that very, very warm cocoa brown patina to the bronze itself. And then the gilt splashes are sort of irregular and going all over the place. Very, very pretty, beautifully done. And reasonable estimates, reasonable estimates. And the truth is, if they had put a $5,000 to $7,000 estimate on it, it may have not sold. Because people get encouraged. The anticipation and feeling like you can buy something gets people into it. And I know this from my own experience running auctions years ago. We would have a lot coming up that we know is going to bring 6 figures. It's going to bring $100,000. And sometimes the bidders, we wouldn't set a minimum bidding price. We'd say, "Okay, give me $1,000 to get it started." And sometimes people wouldn't put up their hands for that, and they know it's going to bring. This is how dealers do it. And eventually somebody throws in a bid, and before you know it, 4 bids later, you're up to 40,000, then a few more bids up to it, you're to 100. We had one piece that we started once for about $1,000. It was a very, very rare clock. It sold for $250,000. And from 110,000 and up, it was just down to 2 very well-known bidders, very well-known collectors being represented by very well-known dealers. And it went for 250,000, I think, plus the premium. So you don't know. but where something starts is often not where it ends. It can be nerve-wracking. It can be nerve-wracking for consigners if you're in the room. We had a guy at one of our sales. It was pretty funny, actually. His father was a collector, had all kinds of interesting things. He had some great European art, great French furniture and Italian bronzes, all kinds of good things. And the son was an attorney representing his own father's estate, and he really wanted to come to the auction. It was on a Saturday in Essex, Massachusetts, and we saved him a seat in the front row for he and a friend of his were coming, and they sat there. And some of the lots would start at at $400 and end up at 40,000. And after about a half an hour, he got up and he quietly said to me as he walked out, he said, "I can't take this for another 4 hours," because the concern about the high and the low. And we used to actually, when we were doing auctions, we had a couple of elderly sisters that lived out in Western Mass, but they inherited a house on Beacon Hill that was packed with 4 generations of antiques that we cleared out. Right behind Kevin White, the mayor of Boston's house. Kevin came over while we were cleaning out the house because we were there for several days. And it was pretty funny. They were nervous wrecks about this, and they said, "What do we do? What do we do? The family's owned this house, since 1820, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "You don't do anything." I said, "Give me the keys to the house. He's your lawyer. He'll be here. Go back to Western Mass, and we'll call you, and we'll let you know when the sale's going to happen." And when the sale started to happen, it was coming up. They called and said that she and the sister were coming to the sale. I said, "Do you really want to?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, but I don't want you to get nervous because there's a lot of material here, and consigners get very antsy sitting in an auction room." And they got there and they were nervous wrecks. They were women in their 80s, and one of them wasn't in great health. And I finally went over to the bookkeeper and I said, give them. I think we gave them $300 or $400 out of the till, and said, go and spend the day in Gloucester. Go have a nice lunch. It was this summer. I said, go to the beach, enjoy the day, and come back around 5 o'clock. And they did that. And they came back at the end of the day. They'd had a lot of fun. I think they'd gone out on a tour boat, and they did very well in the sale. But had they been there, I was terrified. These little old ladies, one of them would have a heart attack during the sale out of anxiety because they were extremely anxious. And that happens often with consigners. So when it comes to selling things, they can be a bit unrealistic emotionally about values. That's all there is to it. I can't say enough about the psychology of estimates and reserves. It make or break your sale. All right, and then over to this. This was one of the Nishai mats that was sold at. This was over at Ripon Boswell's. They had a very good sale. The overall, this was one of the bargains of the day. That's why I'm pointing it out. This should have brought a lot more money. This was a very good piece of Nishai. It was an 18th century mat. All right, and this would cost about $80 to ship from Germany to America. It's very, very small, beautifully done, nice yellow against a tan background. This was the bargain of the day. This was a wonderful buy for someone, and I'm hoping one of you bought it. I really, really am. The rest of the stuff brought a lot of money in general. There was this very nice Tiki Choual that sold. They had a number of Tiki pieces that did very well. This is a 19th century one, early, very good quality, nice. It looks like it's got a little bit of silk in it. It looks to be pretty complete all the way around. I don't see any losses. And it had this very involved multiple floral elem at the bottom. The elem is the bottom half here, this area from here to here. They call that the elem. And often it's been cut off of bags. This is what one looks like when they're complete and all there. Some of them don't have them, but many of them do. They always have a skirt at the bottom on chevals, on these saddlebags. But this was beautifully done almost in miniature across the bottom. This has one of the narrowest groups of them I've seen in some time, and I think it was a perfectly good buy. In U.S. currency, it came out to about $9,000, a little over $9,000 for it, somewhere in there. But beautiful piece of carpet. All right. And that sort of covers it for the week. It's been sort of an interesting week. There's a lot of stuff coming up. There's a couple of good sales, as I mentioned, coming up. You get the Freeman sale coming up in a week and a half from now. You've got the later on this month, you've got a very good sale coming up at Eldred's. You've got the Luxor sale coming up, a Locati sale rather, Locati sale coming up in a few days. So there's plenty of things coming onto the market. It seems like all of a sudden it's going to get very, very busy. And we kind of thought it would a couple of months ago. ago when it got quiet. I said, wait till the summer comes. Wait till we get into June, and that's what happens. It's like this every year. I'm not a it's not psychic ability on my part. It's just I've seen it for 45 years, and this is how the business is up and down, and suddenly there's a flood of material on the market, and it makes for great picking and great ways to build up your collections and have a lot of fun with things. And that's what collecting is about. All right, so have a great week, and subscribe if you haven't here so far, and join us over on Patreon. We put up an extra video over there, some other stuff over there this week a lot of people liked, and here we are. All right, and the global pages will be updated probably tomorrow. We've got a bunch of things to add. We'll be adding the Satsuma load in there. The Marco Polo sale's already in there. The Eldred sale for July is coming up. It's already on there. There's a number of things on there, a bunch of good sales on there. Go check them out, and have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Today is absolutely perfect around here, finally. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it very much. All right, bye-bye.